the mother of the Resistance, so that way she could give birth to John Connor and, you know, fight the robots in the future. That was but one of the big things with that was there was only one time machine. But in T2 there was another. And that's how they were able to send another Terminator back through two more Terminators back through time to either save or kill John Connor. So it's just a big load of things about it. And like I said, and my big reasoning why I think that retconning works there in that situation is because Skynet could have built another Terminator in then a couple years time. Well, not a Terminator, built another time machine in a couple years time. They could have piled their resources into it. I mean, yes, their defense grids was smashed and all that type of stuff too. That's kind of a plot hole once you think about it. That is one of the main things. And that's really one of the things I kind of fault T2 with story-wise, is that, you know, they had a smashed defense grid and Skynet had no real way to retaliate except by using the Terminators. But in terms of story, with the entire time machine explanation, that really does help the story of Terminator 2 by having that extra time machine, so that way we could have that conflict with the T-800 and the T-1000.
Adult characters, people being faced with actual personality-defining decisions, supported by top-shelf acting. It had real sets, a disgusting amount of practical effects, actual visual imagination.
Okay. Yes, we can all agree that the practical effects were great. Okay? The practical effects were great. Right? It was good. All of them were great. Okay? Still not as good as the original Star Wars' practical effects, in my opinion, because those are timeless. But one of the things that really does help the sequel trilogy in that regard is the fact that it is practical mixed with CGI. That can make or break your movie. Is how good your practical and CG effects look. Okay? But this thing that he said before that, this entire thing with interesting dynamics between old and new characters, all these intersecting personalities, okay? What personality does Leia have? Okay, the entire movie she's either bitching about Poe or is feeling sad. Well, she's bitching to Poe or she's being sad. Okay, not once does she really act like the Princess Leia we knew until we get to the one part where she and Luke meet for one last time before they both fucking die, because I guarantee you there's no way they're going to be able to bring Leia back in episode 9 because, you know, Carrie Fisher died. Once again, big wasted opportunity with The Force Awakens was that we didn't get to see all of our heroes on screen together. We saw them on screen, but we did not get them together. That was a big problem for a lot of people. And to just disregard that as you being a bitchy fanboy, that's not going to work. Okay? Not having all of the original trilogy characters, the main 3 on screen together, that's revolting. Why would you just do that? And the old and new characters, okay, Poe is literally, you know, he was the only proactive person out of the entire cast. Other than Finn. Okay, Finn was the only other really proactive guy in the entire thing. Rose was just along for the ride. She didn't really do much of really her own volition, except when it came to that freaking freeing the slave dogs. That, once again, if you think about it practically, makes no sense. Why would they have slave stuff if they're on a rich planet and they can just buy cheap ass droids to do the work for them? Okay, it's just a lot of things that just don't add up. And alright, it's just irritating to see. Okay, but Rey is just, you know, training with Luke. Luke is just being a hard bastard. Holdo is being a prick and using authority to be a prick. Rose, just along for the ride and the virtue signal about war and stuff like that at the end of the fucking movie, along with child slavery and shit. Which, yeah, child slavery, wrong. No one should be doing that type of shit. But you're in a sci-fi magical universe where that type of stuff wouldn't matter because you have new technologies that can be operated without a fucking slave, okay? And don't pull that Tatooine shit on me, because in Tatooine, it was a desert planet. It was not a rich casino type world. It was a desert planet run by a Hutt clan. Alright? The Hutts did whatever the fuck they wanted. They could have slaves and whatever. They were crime lords, okay? That was the entire point of them. They were crime lords. They weren't these big, gigantic, burly businessmen that are being stereotyped everywhere. Okay, they were criminals. That's why they use that type of shit. Okay, why would people who make weapons have slave labor? It still doesn't make any fucking sense to me. Sorry, I'm going off on a tangent here. Jesus Christ. Okay, but to finish this point off, practical effects should not be there to save your movie, okay? Very few movies can be carried by practical effects alone. Okay? But like Blade Runner, for example, is one of those few movies where the practical effects can really not only enhance the setting and the story, but it can also save the movie. It is one of the big things that saved the movie, to be honest with you. Because, I mean, there were things that were wonky with that movie's plot, but one of the big things that saved it was the practical effects. Alright, there was a movie made in 1982, and it was using technologies that you would think would be in a 2006 movie. Or a 2012 movie. Okay, it just looked that good. Because they did a lot with what they had. Alright, but this is a big budget film that had money getting thrown at it, and they knew they would have money thrown at it. Alright, they just basically did whatever the fuck they wanted to with it, okay? Which is fine. I think that's great. But I think the big problem here is the lack of emotion towards the entire universe as a whole. There is no real set piece that can really just save the movie, per se. Okay? And the practical effects were not used to enhance the story. They were there to make it slow down. The porgs, which is what he's got on this, where I paused it on, which is one of those imaginative things that he was just talking about. They were there for comedy rough shots with Chewbacca. And that was literally Chewbacca's only purpose other than being a glorified chauffeur. Just a fur carpet chauffeur. That was it. Okay? They slowed down the story. Okay? Those things on the Salt Planet, those little animatronic CGI doodingles that look like a Pokemon. It looks like a glorified version of Eevee, an Ice Eevee or something like that. That wasn't that they had no reason to be there. They were just there. They were just there for one moment, and then they were gone the next, and then they were there again, and then they would never show up again. So it was just like, what the hell? Why were they even fucking there? All right. If you're going to all right, there's a good quote. I can't remember who said this quote. But say, if you're going to have something in a movie, you have to make it matter to the plot. If you're going to have, like, sex and drugs and violence and all that stuff, it has to be done to compensate for the plot. And if it's just there for shits and giggles, then it's just pointless. And and a lot of what The Last Jedi has is just pointless.
Taking us to 3 new detailed worlds, all with their own new creatures and subplots going on, which were all subtly weaved into the main story. Even the wildlife in this movie had dramatic purpose. The film actually took risks, something that we begged Rian Johnson to do.
Okay, you know what's taking risk is? Filming on location in a desert in the 1970s, using practical effects for almost every shot in that desert, having your ass brutalized in not only direction but acting. That is a risk. That is a risk. Doing a couple of things for the writer-director's own benefit is not a risk. It will never be a risk. This is one of the problems with George Lucas's prequel trilogy. It's the fact that he had full creative control, and he threw out so many things. He just basically said, fuck it, I'm going to do it my own way, contradicting things that not only came before in his own works, but in an attempt to one-up the people that came before him. Lawrence Kasdan. I think this is the guy I feel the most sorry for out of everyone in Star Wars, other than George Lucas. It is Lawrence Kasdan. If it wasn't for Lawrence Kasdan's co-writing on Empire Strikes Back, I don't think Star Wars would have been what it was today, okay? Or if Empire would have been the movie that it is remembered as today. Because he set up so many things about the Force. He had a lot of creative direction. Yes, Lucas still handled things on the directive front with Irvin Kershner and stuff like that, and that led to some people saying that when he wasn't directing those movies, he was still acting like a director for some people. So it's just like But Lawrence Kasdan, I mean, he set up so many things about the Force and the Jedi in Empire Strikes Back, and it progressed into the Return of the Jedi, and that helped that movie, cement itself in cinema history. But there's not much else. But when you look at the things, sorry. And there was a lot of risk that Kasdan was taking with the writing, with the character development, and Luke Skywalker being Darth Vader's son and stuff like that. Like, they were taking a lot of legitimate risk with that movie that would have made or break the entire franchise, right? But it was done from a storytelling perspective. It wasn't done from personal. It wasn't done for personal venture, like with what Rian Johnson did, like with what George Lucas did with the prequels. That is the big difference. There's a difference between taking risk with a story in order to progress the story and the universe, and just doing it to appease your own personal benefit. And that is the big difference between the OT and the sequel trilogy / the prequel trilogy.
Saw good guys fighting each other for a change. We even saw good guys fighting alongside bad guys. And although
So fuck? You saw good guys fighting good guys for a change? When is that ever a good thing? Okay, are you taking a playbook out of Joss Whedon's The Avengers, where they had that entire 10-minute fight sequence with Thor? Well, not 10 minutes, but that fight sequence with Thor, Captain America, and Iron Man? Are you serious? No, I don't want to see good guys fighting good guys. And if I do see them fight, I'd rather it be in a training session or something. Do it like what the X-Men would do with their training simulations and shit. What? Good guys fighting good guys. We get to see that happening for a change. Are you fucking kidding me? No. If good guys are fighting good guys, that means something is horribly wrong. That means that there is a schism that cannot be broken. There is a schism that cannot be broken between those characters. Okay, when we saw good guys fighting good guys in the prequel trilogy, Anakin fighting Obi-Wan. Yes, he wasn't exactly good at that moment, but he was a good guy for most of the prequel trilogy, and he turned bad. Okay, there became a schism between him and Obi-Wan, and that's why they fought. And because George Lucas raised the stakes, he had Anakin turn to the dark side. He was not seduced, but he was tricked by Palpatine to become Darth Vader. Okay? The good guys fighting good guys part they had for the screenshot, well, not the screenshot, but the video clip, was the part where Rey tried to beat Luke up with her staff, and Luke was just dodging it nonchalantly. Which is one of the most boring parts of that entire part. I mean, yeah, it showed Luke's finesse in his old age, which was pretty good to see. But the fact that it was just Luke just dodging all that shit and not actually defending himself, it was just why bother even fucking having it in the movie? So it's just, and then he loses when Rey draws out Luke's lightsaber against him, and then that scene ends. That's it. That's it. All right. And I've said time and time again, I've been trying to keep my thoughts on this movie out of this so that way I can save it for my review. But I can't. Okay. This entire thing is just filled with so many contradicting opinions and straw manning arguments against people. All right. I can't just not talk about my thoughts about that movie now because there's just so much that's been dragged into the conversation as a whole. It's not gonna stop. It's not gonna stop until something happens. All right, I say this all the time. Until something happens, I don't know what's gonna fucking happen. I don't know what we're gonna need to do to have something happen to actually have a good conversation with other people on this issue, but we're not having that. We're just having people calling each other fucking names on the internet being assholes. That's it. That is literally it. We're just having people being assholes to each other online just because they either liked or disliked a movie, and you're gonna straw man them by putting them into by lapping them into camps such as white supremacists, Nazis, or SJWs, even though they might have liked or disliked the movie. Yeah, so honestly, we need to have a big timeout with not only the fandom but Lucasfilm and stuff as a whole. This is just, it's just so much bullshit, man. There's just so much bullshit going around. No one's actually trying to take a time to analyze it and say, hey, is this good for the fandom, or is this good for everybody here? Is it no? This is just personal shit. It's just all personal now. It's like we're not trying to talk about artistic integrity type of stuff. It's just bullshit about, oh hey, this is what I personally want to happen. That's it. Okay? Now in some cases I think that can work. But not with Star Wars. Not when you're having an entire universe and story riding on its back.
Film managed to pack an insane amount of crowd-pleasing Star Wars-y moments that did not sacrifice its deep subtext about failure and survival.
Yes, there was subtext about survival, but everybody's failed in stupid ways that could have been avoided, okay? Like, one of the big... I personally think Revenge of the Sith is an okay movie. But one of the things I really hate about the movies is so many things happened illogically. Like Luke turning to the dark side all of a sudden. There were so many moments where he could have been just swayed against it, okay? Where, like, someone could have, like, told him, hey, this isn't right, or something like that. There were so many moments where you could have just done so many things to keep Anakin from turning bad. And but they didn't. So many things happened in order to facilitate just the plot. And that's something that I really hate. So you're just going to have all these things happen to facilitate the plot, but it doesn't flow naturally. It doesn't work like it's supposed to. And that's the big problem here. Is it's done just to accommodate the plot. Alright, and the themes don't exactly work with the movie like they would in other movies. Okay, one of the themes in like movies like Saving Private Ryan, for example, is the theme of sacrifice, and that's a theme that shows up in this movie. Alright, the one thing was like, if we sacrifice ourselves here to save this guy, Private Ryan, then we all get the right to go home. Okay, that was one of the big things in that movie. And at the end, almost everybody dies in that movie. Only a few people actually survive. And one of the big things that Ryan tried to do throughout his life, through a couple of lines of dialogue, was trying to earn that sacrifice that his fellow soldiers gave so he could go home. And here, in The Last Jedi, you have this theme of sacrifice, alright? And I'm going to go deep into the themes later, but I'm just going to use sacrifice as an example right now. They have the theme of sacrifice. The first action scene ends with the sacrifice to destroy the First Order Dreadnought, and it was dramatic, despite the fact that, the ships were fucking retarded because they were as weak as... they were weaker than a freaking biped. Or whatever type of airplane. Let's just say it worked just about those bombers worked just about as well as the Wright brothers' first attempt at an airplane. Because, they got destroyed so easily. But there was one bomber that managed to make it, and in the dramatic moment where the attention, and where I will applaud Rian Johnson at this, is he did ramp up the emotion and everything with the direction. With what he did with that scene, it was heart-wrenching. It was like you did feel at least something of emotional investment despite not knowing the character that ended up sacrificing herself. But multiple people sacrifice themselves during this movie. Luke sacrifices himself. Holdo sacrifices herself. And Finn almost sacrifices himself. But that entire theme of sacrifice is undercut in Finn's sacrifice, because you know what happens? Finn gets saved by Rose. Alright? And if you don't know the scene, I'm just gonna... Alright, if you want an explanation of the scene, I'll give it to you. Okay? The First Order got some Death Star tech out there. And they were going to use it on the big metal door that's in front of... basically there's a big metal door that the First Order is trying to crack like an egg, so they can get in there and kill the rest of the Resistance. Alright, and then everybody's dying because the speeders that they got, once again, this big design flaws, has like no turrets or anything like that, so not able to fight back against TIE fighters or ATSTs and stuff like that, and they're getting picked off one by one. But Finn decides to stay behind. He decides, not even Poe decides to fight. Poe breaks off, and then Finn decides that he's going to stay the course and ram the thing and sacrifice himself to save a cause that's bigger than him, which progresses Finn, not in a great way because he didn't really earn it, but it was going to progress Finn beyond caring just for himself and Rey. He was going to save a cause that was bigger than him. Alright? And it was almost done perfect. Like, it was there. Okay, that scene, I was legitimately interested. I was like, oh my god, Finn might actually die. But then Rose comes out of nowhere and fucking saves him. And the explanation she gives is so freaking anti-Warian, like anti-Vietnam War type of speech, that it pains me to watch every time I see it. The only way I can see it right anymore is as a meme. That's it. That's the only way I can actually watch that scene and actually try to understand what's going on, is if I see it as a meme. Okay, here's the explanation she gives for saving his ass. I saved you, you dummy. This is how we're going to win. Not by fighting what we hate. Not by fighting what we hate, saving what we love. Which is a good idea if it wasn't in a situation where you're fighting for your final fucking breaths against a force that's going to kill you any freaking moment now. Are you fucking kidding me? And a lot of people give the excuse of, well, Luke was going to come in and save them anyway. Who gives a fuck? Yeah, Luke was going to come. Okay, but you didn't know that at the time. Alright, what if Luke didn't come? What if he just stayed on his island pouting like a little bitch? What if he just stayed there? Everybody would be fucking dead. Everyone would die. There'd be no way to save the story, because everyone would be fucking dead. Unless Rey managed to come in at the last moment and save them. But that's not what happened. What? This thing is such a stretch on reality that it pains my brain to analyze. Anyway, thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed this little rant of holy shit, why is this an argument? I'll try getting out as many more parts as I can later on. I got a whole bunch of things I have planned, let's plays and shit like that. And more political stuff I'm going to rant about later. But anyways, thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed. I'm just going to go cry in a hole now.